Okay, let's go. 1. What is for you culture of solidarity in these times, and how can we produce it? Good. Okay, so first of all, culture of solidarity in these times, for me, doesn't exist. There is solidarity in all times, and it's the same. So it's not a specific type of solidarity that we must cultivate in these times. In this sense, the conditions for the cultivation and the production of solidarity have not changed for me. They are the same. Of course, solidarity usually intensifies, and it should intensify in times of crisis, such as this one. But in general, I believe that central to the practice of solidarity, I think that solidarity is a practice. This means that it's something we must do all the time, every day if possible, in order to cultivate it. So central in this practice of solidarity, I find a term that the Croatian performance theorist Una Bauer has suggested in her book, The Practice of Dramaturgy, and she has called this term impersonal sociability. What this means is that in order for solidarity to exist, we must accept the value and appreciate the value of doing something or many things for people we don't know, and for doing things without expecting to have a profit from them, metaphorically or literally. I find this suggestion central in the practice of solidarity, and I find it central and very important exactly because we live in times of extreme individualization, where the taking care of each other, and not only our family and our close ones, of course, but taking care of people we don't know and of things that will not have an immediate impact or profit for us, is almost unthinkable. So for me, the practice of solidarity has to be based and start from understanding and valuing the concept of impersonal sociability. The second question asks what knowledge we produce in culture and art now, and how we should produce and distribute the knowledge. Okay, again, I don't think that culture and art produces any particular type of knowledge now. I think it produces the knowledge that it always produces, and this knowledge for me relate to creating visible forms for other ways of living together, for our social coexistence. So producing forms for social and political alternatives. This is the knowledge that art produces. And I think, of course, that it should do that even more now, because the urgent conditions around us and the new demands impose on us to urgently shift and take new political decisions, make new choices in our everyday life. And I think art can contribute a lot to the emergence of alternative modes of living together. Then I'm not sure I know how to, or I'm a bit reluctant maybe to reply to something that includes the word distribution in it. And I think that's because I feel a bit overwhelmed with all this overload of performances and artworks that are available online this last couple of months. And I think this has to do, of course, I recognize the generosity of this act of artists offering to the people who are closed in their houses artwork so that they can be occupied with something more inspirational and creative, let's say. That's very much appreciated. But on the other hand, I also cannot but detect a kind of anxiety for visibility, or even a threat even that says, okay, arts, especially the performing arts, are based on social proximity. What will happen now that social distance is imposed? And I think artists are maybe a bit also afraid that they will disappear, and that's why they try to become available and visible online. Of course, it's also true that arts, performing arts, the theaters will be the last ones to open. I understand the threat, but yeah, it's something to think about maybe. Then after that, of course, distribution of the knowledge of art, of the performing arts especially. always relates and should relate to the physical proximity. That's the way performing arts distribute their knowledge, through meetings, live meetings, through building live communities with their audience, and I think that they should insist on this live and very corporeal encounter in order to distribute their knowledge. Okay, and I think questions 3 and 4 could be replied together, so I will read them both. What we learned from the crisis: can we develop different post-crisis modes and conditions of art and cultural production, which will allow basic sustainability and reduce the precarious position of cultural workers and artists? And then question 4 says, does COVID-19 crisis brings forward the idea of a social equality, social states, and maybe universal basic income? How can that be reflected in culture and arts? So these two questions for me can be replied together. They are somehow related. I don't know what we've learned from this crisis. I think it will take us some time to realize it. But I know for sure that at least until now, we have definitely confirmed what we already knew. And what we already knew was that our own actions have a serious harm on the planet, and this results in, and will result in the future, in pandemics like this one and even more serious ones. This was something we knew. We confirm it once more. I don't know how many times we want to hear it and experience it in order to take action against it. Another thing we knew was that we cannot continue for a long time to structure our economies around a constant crazy growth, which has significant negative impact on the planet and also on workers, because it exhausts them, and we have all this very regular phenomenon of burnout lately. That's something we knew. We confirmed it again, and then we must very urgently, related to the previous one, face the precarity of the current working conditions, not only in arts and culture. I cannot separate the area of arts in these terms. We must invest for arts and culture, but for many other disciplines as well, invest on more sustainable models of work. In this sense, definitely the crisis of coronavirus brings us, or should bring us, I hope it will bring us closer to the idea of imposing a universal basic income. I hope it will also bring us closer to the idea of traveling less and investing more in locality, while of course always staying open and in contact and in solidarity with the rest of the world. And the fifth question asks what political and policy approaches you would foresee for future in the field you work, or how it should be changed in future. I think for me, local frames for support for culture and arts have to be increased, and that would be maybe the most important measure I could suggest now, because I think that the demand to shift from the constant internationalization, globalization, towards more local approaches in our lives becomes very urgent. And this means that the cities, the states of course, first of all, but also the cities or the smaller towns and even villages should rethink and redesign their cultural policies and support much more and in much more sustainable ways artists. First of all, locals, but also of course some internationals. With this I mean that the era of constant networking, where we would have 2 or 3 or 4 huge European projects which would move around 20 concrete, very specific artists, the same artists all over Europe, and this had the result that it would make no difference if you would see a festival in Vienna or in Brussels, because it would be more or less the same. I think this time is now completely done. Therefore, we must reinvent and revalue the local. We must become much more diverse in this sense, and I don't consider this to be a negative thing at all. So maybe that's the one positive thing, this turn to locality that this crisis could give us. Thanks.